Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 798, and today's date is October 13th, 2015, and the title of this episode is Central Bankers Are Now Preparing Aggressive Measures to Ban Cash. Now, before I get started, I just want to make an announcement. The interview with Harley Schlanger has been uploaded to the X22 Report Spotlight channel. You can go right over to YouTube, type in X22 Report Spotlight. It will bring you right to the video, or you can come over to the x22report.com site, scroll down a little bit, look over to your right, you'll see the interview right there. Let's get right into the economic collapse financial news. Now, we are entering a period of time where the U.S. government central bankers are losing control of what is happening around the world. We understand that the global debt around the world cannot be sustained. The debt in the United States cannot be sustained. We understand there is no money out there that the people can give. So the central bankers will have to take. And we're going to see a lot more layoffs. We're going to see the economy contract in retail, in real estate, in auto sales. And as we go through this holiday season, more retailers are going to close down. More corporations are going to announce, probably early winter, early spring, around that time period, of more people they're going to have to lay off. And we're starting to see it. I mean, just in this past year, we've seen hundreds of thousands of people being laid off. Twitter is laying off about 336 right now. FMC Corp is laying off 850. And it's not going to end anytime soon. Even though the stock market continually rises, then of course it falls. The revenues do not match what is going on in this country. The corporate revenues are declining. Sales are declining. And we see here in the United States, for the first week of October, we're seeing that national chain stores, their sales have fallen by 0.2% in the first week of October. It already is beginning. And we already know they predicted that this holiday season, it's not going to be as good as in the past, but it won't be that bad. This is what they're trying to convince us of. But Black Friday, Cyber Monday, it's going to be absolutely horrible. Think about all the people that have been laid off since the beginning of this year. Think about all these people who cannot find the same full-time job at the same salary. Think about all these people who are getting part-time work, who don't have the discretionary funds. And we're starting to see that the retail sales, they're not working out at this point. They're contracting. And if people are not going to be purchasing, guess what? The factories aren't going to be producing. And we're seeing from the economic indicators that this is absolutely true. Manufacturing is down the toilet. The Baltic Dry Index is dropping like a rock. This is the raw material that the factories use to produce the goods. It's down to 804, down 5 points. This is the worst we've seen it at this time period. Usually it's around 1,500. It's usually double what we're seeing right now. Now, of course, the government is telling us that everything is fine. We're at 5.1% unemployment. Except for all those people that didn't want to look for a job and we just didn't include them. And that turns out to be millions. 4 million people? Now, central bankers, they are pushing the idea that we're going to need negative interest rates. They're pushing the idea that we cannot allow these people to have cash. Now, they're pushing it in Greece at this point, just like we saw in Cyprus with capital controls, bank holiday, and a bail-in. We know in January, Greece becomes eligible for bail-ins. We see already they introduced stricter capital controls. They're not letting people take cash out of the banks. And right now, the Fed, the central bankers, they're taking a much more aggressive approach to ban cash. The Feds plan to take hold of savings during the next round of crisis to stop individuals from getting their money out. They don't want a repeat of what happened in Greece when they knew the country was headed in the wrong direction, which it's still headed in the wrong direction, people ran to the bank, took their money out. So we are going to see banks, the Fed, the government come out and let us know that they need to start limiting the cash withdrawals. And of course, this is for your benefit. They rather you purchase everything using your credit card or debit card. And to keep the banks afloat and in good standing to their new requirements, they cannot release a certain number of funds to the public. But don't worry, everything is fine. You can make as many purchases as you want using your debit card. This is the direction they are headed right now. The central banks, they're bracing for a rolling series of crises. They're getting prepared for what is about to hit. Now, of course, they're the cause of it. They're the ones that created all this. The debt right now cannot be sustained. And HSBC is out there saying, from our metrics, we are already in a global recession. They produced a chart which is denominated in US dollars, and they're saying, from this chart, we're already in a recession, a global recession. And it's going to get worse as time goes on. They're saying that global trade is also declining at an alarming pace. According to the latest data available in June, the year-on-year change is negative 8.4%. To find periods of equivalent declines, we only really find recessionary periods. US dollars is already negative to the tune of 37 trillion or negative 3.4%. That is, we are already in a dollar recession. So is anything going to improve here? No, absolutely not. As time goes on, it's going to get worse and worse. And there's no way out. And the only way out, according to the central banks, is to go after the people's money. And they've done this with Obamacare, with FATCA. Now, if those people who don't really understand what FATCA is, let me just explain what it is. It's the Foreign Account Tax Compliance Act. And it's basically a law within a law. FATCA effectively commanded every single bank on the planet to enter into an information sharing agreement with the IRS. Well, actually, it was one way. They wanted the information from the banks to flow right to the IRS all across the world, and nothing was going back. So they're really not sharing. Basically, they're giving. It all started based on the phony assumption that millions of Americans were hiding trillions of dollars in secret offshore accounts. And since the United States government was completely broke, revenue was not coming in, they figured they needed a way to bring revenue in to pay for all this debt. And wow, what we can do is we can go across the world and people must have money or currency in the banks. And we'll just take it from them. And this will solve our problems. Well, guess what happened? All the countries had to come in line with this FATCA law. And if they didn't, they were threatened with a crippling 30% withholding tax on every dollar that went in and out through the land of the free. Banks complied, and FATCA was rolled out across the world. Now, the entire law was passed based on the premise that it would quickly fill in the government's empty coffers with oodles of cash all around the world. But guess what? Over the last 5 to 6 years, it's not working. They can't bring in enough. Guess what they're finding? People are not hiding money around the world. People don't have the funds they thought they had. Basically, they brought in about $6.5 billion, roughly $1 to $1.3 billion per year. And according to the Association of Certified Financial Crime Specialists, an organization specializing in tax evasion, FATCA will continue to generate roughly $800 million per year in tax revenue. And I hate to say this, but $8 million doesn't even constitute a drop in the bucket anymore. It's enough to pay about 17 hours worth of interest on the national debt. That's it. So what they tried to do did not work. They pushed Obamacare out to bring in revenue. It did not work. We understand the IMF, Christine Lagarde, is proposing a carbon tax to help with the debt problem. Most of the countries are fighting against this. Most of the people are saying global warming is fake. You're just doing this to tax the people, to pay for this debt. I mean, Christine Lagarde was right out there saying, yes, this is what we're doing. And we heard that the IMF is proposing taxing everyone using taxes which equal 10% of what your wealth is. They are thinking of all different ways of bringing in revenue. And guess what? This is also going to be a problem. So they wanted to take 10% of your private savings in addition to the taxes that you're already paying. And if they can throw on top a carbon tax, they're hoping that all of this will help bring down the debt of the world. And where does this money flow to? The central bankers. Because that's who it's owed to. Because they cannot keep this system afloat any longer. And they know this. And they have two options. Either the whole system crashes, or they tax everyone around the world, and it props up the system for a little bit longer. But guess what? The debt's going to continue to rise. They're going to want 20%. They're going to want 40%. They're going to want 50%. And before you know it, we're back to where we were before. Because the system is dying. The system cannot be sustained. It's impossible right now. And they know this. And they have that option, which the countries around the world are not going to go for. The people are not going to go for. Their other option is to trick the people into war. And this is what they're trying to do at this time. We see Russia is out there. And they're saying that OPEC right now is no longer the oil market key regulator. The U.S. is. The U.S. is calling the shots for everything at this point. I think it was always like that. I think the main role of OPEC was to take the orders from the U.S. Period. That's it. Now, out in Tennessee, there's a school district who's saying that they have to shut down their schools as a result of a budget problem that has left the government unable to fund the facilities. And the school director is blaming this on Obamacare for its problems. Clay County, Tennessee operates 3 schools, and they're saying that because of the mandates in Obamacare, they can't make ends meet. And they're blaming this all on the Affordable Care Act. They said it's made it very difficult for them to have their employees properly covered and meet the mandates of the law. It was going to require new revenue, and the commission felt like they couldn't do that through a tax increase. But I think on December 8th, they're going to have to do something because under the law, they have to reopen the schools. So basically what that means is the people will be taxed additionally. And we can see right now that Obamacare is failing. They need 22 million more people to keep the system alive. Obama is trying to make all these illegals citizens with his pen and his paper to bring in about 8 more million into the system. And that's not enough to keep it going. And we know Obamacare right now is not a benefit to the people whatsoever. And this whole system that they were hoping to create with all these tax revenue schemes, it is completely falling apart. And the system is dying. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.